Imagine making a single wish for someone to love you more than anyone else in the entire world. But when that wish actually comes true, it brings a terrifyingly dark psychological nightmare. This is the reality of obsession, a twisted supernatural thriller that serves as a brutal warning. Be careful what you wish for. The story follows Bear, a deeply insecure and isolated young man living alone in his late grandmother's house. Trapped in his own loneliness, Bear is desperately, obsessively in love with his coworker and childhood friend, Nikki. They work together at a local music store, where Bear spends his days watching her from afar, completely paralyzed by the fear of rejection. He is so socially awkward that he actually goes to a diner with his best friend, Ian, just to practice how to confess his love to an unsuspecting waitress. But Bear's miserable life quickly gets worse when he finds his beloved cat dead on the bathroom floor, having accidentally consumed his grandmother's old prescription pills. As Bear sobs uncontrollably over his dead pet, Nikki calls to check on him and mentions that she just dropped her favorite crystal necklace down a drain. Driven by a desperate, borderline obsessive impulse, Bear rushes to a local crystal shop before closing to buy a replacement. While inside, a strange retro 1980s novelty item on a shelf catches his attention. It is called the Wish Willow, a creepy gimmick resembling a wooden wishbone that promises to grant exactly one wish when snapped in half. The girl working behind the counter warns Bear that customers often return to complain. When Bear asks if they complain because it doesn't work or because it ruined their lives, she avoids the question, foreshadowing the horror about to unlock. Later that evening, Bear joins Nikki, Ian, and their coworker Sarah for a quiz night at a local pub. Throughout the night, Bear tries to confess his feelings, but they are constantly interrupted. Afterward, Bear offers to drive Nikki home. Inside the quiet car, Nikki reveals a secret. She is quitting her job to write a love story, confessing she has never actually felt love herself and needs to experience it to write realistically. Bear, failing to understand her emotional depth, tries to flirt, but uses an old childhood nickname, Freaky Nikki. He doesn't realize this was a painful name used by her childhood bullies. The mood instantly shifts. Nikki confronts him directly, asking if he likes her. Overcome by cowardice, Bear chickens out and claims they are just good friends. Deeply disappointed by his dishonesty, Nikki leaves the car. Sat alone like a rejected child, Bear's desperation takes over. He opens the Wish Willow box, which plays a strange electronic video game jingle. Holding the wooden stick in his trembling hands, Bear utters, "I wish Nikki loved me more than anyone else in the entire world," and snaps it in half. Instantly, he looks toward the house and gasps. Nikki is standing on her doorstep in the dark, staring back at him with an altered, intense expression. She slowly walks to his car, her entire personality inverted into an aggressive, lovesick infatuation. She begs him to come inside, but mid-sentence, her face twists in confusion as her true consciousness briefly breaks through the trance, muttering, "What the fuck am I doing?" A microsecond later, the magic snaps her right back into the simulation. She forces herself into his car, demanding they go to his house. Arriving at Bear's house, Nikki aggressively drags him to the bedroom, kissing him passionately. Mid-kiss, she suffers another violent mental glitch, pulling away in sheer panic and screaming before the trance overrides her brain once again. Terrified by her erratic behavior, Bear sleeps on the floor. The next morning, Bear searches online and finds ominous forum posts claiming the Wish Willow wishes are real and dangerous. When he walks into the kitchen, he freezes in horror. Nikki has dug his dead cat out of the trash bin, bringing the corpse inside to set up a bizarre candle-lit memorial on the kitchen floor. Despite this massive red flag, Bear chooses to ignore it because his ultimate fantasy is being fulfilled. They begin dating, sharing a montage of endless affection at work and at home. To the outside world, it looks like a blissful romance, but the dark reality soon crashes down. During a date at a diner, Ian calls Bear with a shocking truth. Nikki had lied about her father dying to stay with Bear, and just days prior, she told Sarah she viewed Bear strictly as a little brother with zero romantic interest. Bear finally realizes Nikki's sudden love is entirely artificial, the result of his supernatural wish, yet proving how deeply selfish he is. When Nikki returns to the table and her face twitches in a manic glitch, Bear ignores her dead, hollow eyes. He willingly accepts the fake simulation just to satisfy his desires. That night, Bear wakes up to find Nikki standing perfectly still in a pitch-black corner of the room, crying like a disturbed infant and screaming that he doesn't love her enough. The next morning, he wakes up to find Nikki has forcefully cut his hair while he slept, and she literally urinates herself standing in the hallway, refusing to move for hours while waiting for him to return. At work, Bear opens his lunchbox to find two disturbing Polaroids implying the entity controlling her body is not Nikki at all. He takes a bite of his sandwich, only to make a gruesome discovery. Nikki has chopped up his dead cat and cooked it into his food. Horrified, Bear runs to his car and dials the customer service number on the wish box. A bored agent answers. Bear desperately asks if he can alter the wish to make Nikki act normal while still loving him. The agent refuses, chillingly stating, "Just because you chose this for her doesn't make it less real." When Bear begs to cancel the wish, the agent reveals that a cancellation is impossible. The contract can only be broken if the person who made the wish dies. The agent then patches through the real Nikki's consciousness, and her voice comes screaming down the line in absolute agony, weeping from a dark mental prison. Bear hangs up in terror. Later, the group gathers for a small party, where Nikki reads a twisted short story about brother and sister forced into marriage, explicitly mirroring her real-life horror. During a party game, Bear is dared to kiss Sarah, who is sitting to his left. Enraged, Nikki silently walks up, violently jerks Sarah's chair out of the way, and takes her place to force Bear to kiss her instead. Moments later, Nikki suffers another violent mental glitch, grabbing a glass bottle and repeatedly smashing herself in the head with it. Instead of caring for her safety, Bear feels embarrassed, yelling at her when they get home to act normal. Nikki screams back in a distorted voice, "I can be Nikki," before walking backward in a horrific, unnatural stance and speaking completely in reverse. That night, Bear receives a desperate text from Sarah. As he tries to slip away, the sleeping, real Nikki wakes up and whispers in a weeping voice, "Kill me, please. She's sleeping. Please don't wake her up. Just kill me." Bear selfishly responds, "What would be so bad about being with me?" Before her consciousness is dragged back under, Bear meets Sarah in her parked car, where Sarah reveals that Nikki and Ian had been secretly sleeping together for the past 2 years. Just as Bear realizes his massive mistake, Nikki shatters the car window with a concrete brick. She brutally attacks Sarah, repeatedly smashing the brick into her face against the steering wheel until her head is reduced to a bloody pulp.
Completely consumed by cowardice, Bear helps Nikki conceal Sarah's corpse. Desperate to end the madness, he runs back to the crystal shop. The girl behind the counter suggests that a counter wish from a new stick might override the original spell. Bear buys the last 3 remaining One Wish Willows. He tries to break one, wishing for Nikki to love him only as a friend, but the stick physically refuses to snap, sensing his quota is full. Bear rushes to Ian's house, begging him to break the stick and wish the original wish away. But Ian proves to be a terrible friend. He snaps the stick and wishes for $1 billion instead, causing a literal rain of cash to pour inside his living room. Bear flees back home, walking into an absolute nightmare. Nikki has set up a horrific shrine featuring Sarah's stripped, dead body in a chair, while Nikki wears Sarah's clothes and has crudely drawn Sarah's tattoos onto her own skin. In a full psychotic breakdown, Nikki begins hitting herself with a brick. When Ian arrives at the house looking for Bear, a manic Nikki pulls out a handgun and shoots him dead on the spot. Bear manipulates Nikki by telling her he loves her, calming her down just enough to steal the gun and lock himself in the bathroom. Surrounded by the corpses of his friends, Bear realizes there is no escape. Lacking the courage to pull the trigger, he opens the medicine cabinet, grabs his grandmother's lethal prescription pills, and swallows them all, knowing his death is the only key to breaking the contract. But his fundamental cowardice returns, and he desperately tries to force himself to vomit the pills back up. Before he can, the chilling electronic jingle of the One Wish Willow plays from outside the door, followed by a loud snap. Nikki has broken the final stick, wishing for Bear to love her back. Instantly, the supernatural trance hits Bear's brain. His panic vanishes, his eyes go hollow, and he walks out of the bathroom, completely infatuated. Covered in the blood of their dead friends, the two share a sickeningly sweet embrace and kiss. But mid-kiss, the lethal overdose takes full effect, and Bear collapses dead onto the floor. The moment his heart stops, the magical contract is broken. The supernatural trance instantly vanishes from Nikki's brain, and the real Nikki snaps back to reality. She shoves Bear's corpse off her, looking around the room in pure, absolute horror. The spell is gone, and she finds herself entirely alone, covered in blood, surrounded by the mutilated corpses of all her closest friends. The movie ends in a pitch-black cycle of grief as her horrific, agonizing screams echo into the darkness.
I love you!